Welcome to another coaching call. Okay, today we're going to answer the question, how do you calm down that voice in your head? Okay, and how do you kind of talk yourself off of that proverbial edge along the ups and downs along this journey? Because this is a long journey, right? We're going to be doing this for a while. So you need to make sure, your body's healthy and of course your mind is healthy and you're not battling with yourself this whole time, okay? So I want to share a little story with you guys, probably something surprising you don't really know about me. When I was younger, when I was like preteen, I was extremely introverted. So much so that my family gave me the nickname The Stoic. I was known as The Stoic, because I had RBF, I had resting bitch face on all the time. I didn't talk to anybody. I was just like a miserable, moody, hormonal preteen. I was like the epitome of introverted. And I thought I was cool because I was into like all these rock bands and I thought, that's the cool thing they do. They don't show emotion, all that stuff. But when high school rolled around, I was really nervous. I was really anxious. I didn't have a lot of friends. I didn't really know how to make friends. So I was really anxious in social situations because I hadn't really practiced in them. And as a result, when I did start high school, I actually ended up eating lunch in the bathroom quite a few times, because I was just so nervous, so anxious. I didn't know how to talk to anybody. I didn't know, how do I make them like me? What if they don't like me? What do we even talk about? What if there's awkward silences? Like I had a big fear of social interactions. Was anybody else kind of felt that before? Like fear of social situations? So that was me at a very, very young age, like huge social anxiety. Like I just could not handle it. If I saw somebody I know walking towards me in the hallway, I'd pretend I didn't see them and go the other way so I didn't have to do that awkward hey as you pass each other. Like I was avoiding it at all costs. And that was in high school. And, the years passed in high school. I made a couple new friends here and there, but nothing long lasting, nothing very deep, like no deep connections. And then finally, I remember this very, very vividly. It was the summertime. So school had ended and the summertime had passed, and it was the weekend before school started up again. And I had spent, and I was reflecting, I was like, I can't remember what I did this summer. Like, what did I do this summer? How am I going to remember this summer? Right. And I couldn't really remember it because I didn't do much. I spent a lot of time crying in my room because I wasn't really invited anywhere. I didn't have any friends to go do anything with. I was kind of just alone for these 2 months in the summer. So I was really, really upset. And this was the time where cell phones were starting to get more popular, when it was like normal for everybody to finally have a cell phone. And I didn't get my first cell phone until I was 17 years old. So I was like late. But everybody else had them and I wanted one, and they were all talking to each other and making plans and meeting up, and I wasn't included. So I was sitting there at the end of this summer, and it was the summer before grade 12. And I was like, this is my last high school year. Like I have to make it count. And I was thinking, this feeling I'm feeling now, this disappointment, this FOMO, like fear of missing out, all these horrible feelings I'm feeling because I've been afraid to put myself out there. I was like, this feeling has to be worse than what it would be like if I tried to become more comfortable being social. I was like, this feeling that I'm having right now, I wasted my summer. I'm going into my last year of high school with zero long-term friends. I haven't had the traditional high school experience and all the parties. Like I didn't have it. And I was like, this feeling has to be worse than if I actually went out and tried. So the first day of school rolled around, first day of grade 12, and I was talking myself up, like just in my head, like, you got to do this. You got to do this. I was, you're trying to psych yourself up in your head. I was trying to psych myself up, and I walked into the cafeteria, and I kid you not, I walked to the first group of people I saw, and every step I took and got closer to these women, to this group of girls, I was like, oh my God, run away, stop it, what are you doing, what are you doing, what are you doing, oh my God, and they're like, hey guys, how was your summer? And I just blurted it out, I'm like, it's too late, I can't go back, and I just fucking did it, and I was petrified, and I was like, oh my God, what do I say next? And when you're like, just learning how to socialize and conversate, you're always thinking of what to say next. You're never really in the conversation. You're like, oh my God, what question should I ask next? That's where I was when I started. But the moral of the story here is I started. And the biggest key, okay, the biggest tool that I used, okay, and that I want to share with you guys today, that has helped me and that I still use today, and I actually used this yesterday, is the what if theory, I call it. I don't know if it's actually a thing. It's a thing in my mind, so I called it the what if theory, okay? And the what if theory has literally been the biggest anxiety killer for me. So much so that I used to think that I actually had clinical anxiety and clinical depression. Like I actually thought I was those things. I never got diagnosed, but I thought that I actually had these medical conditions. But after discovering this what if theory and implementing it for 10-ish years now, I don't believe that anymore. I don't believe that. I believe that I experience the emotion of anxiety and I experience the emotion of depression every now and then, but I do not believe that I have those things or that they control power over me, okay? So the what if theory is very, very simple, okay? You know, we have the angel on our shoulder and we have the devil on our shoulder, right? We always have these two voices in our head, okay? And now with this what if theory, I play devil's advocate with myself. I am the devil, right? We're always told, hope for the best, plan for the worst, right? That's what we're always told. So that's what I do. I play the devil and I go through what is the worst case scenario, right? I don't just hope for something to go right. I don't avoid what could go wrong because I don't want to stress myself out. I go right in to what is the worst case scenario. So when I was talking to myself and working myself up to putting myself in more social situations, I'm like, okay, so what is the worst case scenario that happens when I start to do this new uncomfortable thing? So anytime I feel nervous, I feel anxious, I'm avoiding something, I don't want to do something, I get butterflies, I don't want to be embarrassed. Anytime I am pushing away from something, I play this game. I play the what if game. So in this social situation, I said, what am I so afraid of? What is like the worst case scenario that is the sole reason I haven't been putting myself out there? And in that situation, I was going to embarrass myself. They weren't going to like me. I was going to make a fool of myself. They're going to think I'm that weird girl, and they would laugh at me and make fun of me behind my back. That was the worst case scenario, right? That's what we all think when we're anxious about meeting somebody new or meeting someone powerful and influential. We're like, I hope they like us, right? We just innately want people to like us. So that was my biggest fear. I would say something stupid, I would embarrass myself, and they wouldn't like me, and they would think I was weird. So I said, okay, let's pretend I do say something stupid. Let's pretend I am that weird girl. Now what? Now I had this social interaction. I made a fool of myself. What do I do now? Well, now I'm sitting here alone and embarrassed. Am I alive? Am I going to have a chance to do it again? Can I do better next time? And I just literally dissect how I would cope with the worst thing happening. Is this making sense? And this way, when I go into a situation where I'm extremely uncomfortable or that I've been avoiding, I now have already not just thought of the worst thing, I now have already developed a plan of coping with the worst thing. So now if it happens, it's not this huge destructive force. It's not going to mentally throw me off at all because I've already overcome it in my mind. I've already played out what's going to happen, how long will it take, what do I need to do in place to get over this feeling, and then what am I going to do better next time? So I always do this what if game. Is this making sense so far? And it's almost common sense, but I'm taking it one step further, right? Like we always do, we prepare, we hope for the best, and we prepare for the worst for the most part. We always have, backup plans in place, but we don't, we're missing a step there. Once we do prepare for the worst, then let's plan for the worst, right? We prepared for it by knowing that X could happen, but then what's the series of events that happens after X has happened? How does that play out? How do you feel? And how do you cope with it afterwards? That is the most important part because it literally holds no power over you after that. I can't tell you how many times I've messed up, right? I've done seminars, I've done speeches, I do these coaching calls all the time, and I mess up all the time. Sometimes it's very noticeable, sometimes it's not, but I mess up all the time. I will just say something stupid. Maybe I swear when I shouldn't have. Like I slip up. but I've already prepared for that in my mind. So then when I'm out of the situation alone, where normally we'd be freaking out and be like, why did I say that? You ever do something and then you beat yourself up for it and then you think about it for days and days and days. And then that thing now becomes the thing, the exact example you use as to why you shouldn't do it again, right? So but now that I know that this is going to potentially happen, and then I work myself through the coping process, it's not a big deal. I can mess up and keep going. I can mess up and I can laugh at myself, and I can let myself go through all the emotions that normally come with it. But now I've mapped out the order of the emotions I'm going to go through, right? If I say something stupid and embarrass myself and you could tell it on their face, well, then I sit there and say, oh crap, I feel stupid. I don't like this feeling. And then I just say, how am I going to make this better? How am I going to make them forget that I embarrassed myself? What can I do to make myself look more intelligent, to make them like me again? I implement that thing. I change their opinion. I move on and I'm stronger. And then I'm ready for the next thing that I do that's wrong. Is this making sense? So it's going through this in your head. We're taught to avoid it, right? We're only taught to think of what could happen. What's the worst thing, but not actually build out a plan for it in every situation, right? And maybe some of you are resonating with this social anxiety situation. Maybe some of you aren't. Maybe you guys are social butterflies. But now let's apply this to how this works in this weight loss and fitness journey you guys are on, okay? So how does the what if theory apply to your day-to-day lives now, okay? So let's think of some examples here. So if Sunday rolls around, if this Sunday rolls around and your weight hasn't changed and you plateaued, what are you going to do? What if you plateau on Sunday? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Mackie, what are you going to do? If you plateau on Sunday, what are you going to do? He's figuring it out.
I will own up to it and post about it, and I'll mention why, like what was in the way during the week and what was the cause of my plateau, and then like what I'm gonna do to make it better for the week after.
Exactly. Perfect. Exactly. That's exactly what I expect from you guys at this level. Perfect answer, right? Now that's a small little hiccup, right? Are we feeling really, really anxious if that happens? Are we feeling really, really nervous if that happens? It's not a 10 out of 10 on that nervous scale, right? So what if this Sunday rolls around and you've gone up in weight? Then what? Tej, what are you going to do? If Sunday you step on the scale, what if you've gone up in weight? What happens now? What's worst case scenario? How do you work through it in your head?
Same thing. So first, go through where I went wrong. How can I fix it? And basically, really plan it out, write it out, that how I'm going to follow through for the coming week and not let it get to me.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So same idea, not super high on that anxiety scale yet, on that fear scale yet, but a little higher than a plateau. Right now we've gained some weight. What are we going to do? Worst case scenario, we look at that number. It's not what we wanted to see, right? So that's kind of a little higher up. You guys still know what to do, right? We can still rationalize that in our head. It's not some of you have faced this situation before, so you know that you will come out on the other end, right? So now let's take it one step further, okay? Say something happens in your life, ladies. Something happens, and you get completely thrown off. So much so that you end up right back where you started. If you lost 10 pounds, you gain back all 10. If you lost 80 pounds, you gain back all 80. What if that happens? Vithu, what are you going to do? If that happens, what if? Now what?
I'm probably just going to start all over again. That's what I would do. But I would probably strategize first and see where I kind of went off, and then figure out new strategies, new plans, and start over again.
Love it. So I saw some of your faces. You guys were like, oh, what if? Seriously, I'm not joking. What if you went back to where you started? It's not off the table. It's not off the table. What happens if you fall all the way back? If you put on back all the weight, if you lost all of your cardiovascular gains, all of your strength gains, if you were back at square one, what are you going to do? What if that happens. Because right now, in this weight loss game, that is the worst thing that could happen to you, right? That's probably the worst of the worst. What if that happens? Play it out in your head. Go through the emotions. Go through the things that you're going to need in place to get out of it. Go through the coping time frame. How long is that going to take? And then it's not so scary. And then when it doesn't happen, you're freaking pleasantly surprised. And you're like, hell yeah. So this is how this is going to apply to this situation, okay? There's going to be little hiccups. There's going to be medium hiccups, and there's going to be really, really bad things that happen along this journey, right? Can we all agree? Some of you have gone through them already. Some of you haven't yet. Some of you have been coasting pretty good so far, right? But it's only a matter of time till there's that one big speed bump that's going to test you. It's going to really, really test you, right? Because generally speaking, for the first 3 to 6 months of a weight loss journey, of a health kick, you're in this new world. You're excited, you're motivated, the routine is exciting. You know, you're in your bubble with your blinders on for 3 to 6 months into a new routine. What happens when you get bored with your routine? What happens when your schedule changes and it's not as easy to do it anymore, to fit everything in, right? These are all things that are going to happen. Just because it's sunshine and rainbows right now doesn't mean it's always going to be. So play that what if game. What if this happens when my schedule changes? What am I going to do? How am I going to feel about it? We have to talk through these things so we can you know what? The biggest downfall, honestly, in my experience and working with all these ladies, it's not the thing itself that throws you off. It's how you cope with it. Can you guys relate to what I'm saying? It's not this actual, cheating act or falling off act or getting injured. It's not the big act that throws you off. It's how you cope with what had happened. Because you haven't planned to cope with it. You haven't talked through a coping game plan, right? We talked through a weight loss game plan, a fitness game plan. We have all these other routines and game plans set up, but you don't have a coping game plan. What are the emotions you're going to experience, and how are you going to work your way through them, right? Because emotions are very, very, very powerful. That's why I made one of the golden 5 facts over feelings. That's how influential feelings are and emotions are, that it needs its own weight loss rule, right? We live in our feelings. Our feelings influence every single thing we do. Everything in life, everything you've bought, everything you do, everywhere you go, what you wear is dictated by a feeling, right? Pretty standard, right? But if everything good happens because of a feeling, that means everything bad that happens is because of a feeling. Right? There's people who are millionaires, multi-millionaires, and they're miserable. And there's people who are dirt poor, living in a hut, and they're the happiest people on earth. And it's because of perspective. It's because of how they react to situations, how they cope with what they're given, right? They don't have those extreme emotions because they've already thought of everything on the spectrum that could happen, right? Is this making sense? Too often we hide near the good side of the spectrum. We don't want to even look at the bad because you've had so much bad in the past, you're done with it. You want to throw it away and you never want to look at it again. But you have to be prepared. You cannot avoid it. It is part of your life. We wouldn't know what happiness feels like if we didn't have deep sorrow, right? So you don't know what success is if you don't feel failure. But you can't hope to be successful unless we analyze those failures, right? Because your feelings, pretty much, ladies, it comes down to how you handle your feelings. Whether or not you're successful week to week is based upon how you've handled your feelings that week. Is that not the truest statement you've ever heard? Your results on Sunday are based on how you handled your feelings that week. Your feelings of failure, your feelings of guilt, your feelings of hunger, your feelings of maybe at a fight with your significant other, all these feelings. If you didn't cope properly, if you didn't have a coping strategy in place, if you didn't play that what if game, you're going to have bad results every Sunday, right? And then that is how you end up back at square one. That is how you end up back at square one, when you don't intercept your feelings and change the way that you're coping. Change the way that you're coping, change the way that you react, change the way that you talk yourself through it, right? I don't know about you guys, but I sound like when I'm experiencing negative emotions, like, is anybody ever just feeling uneasy and you're not sure why? Like, you ever just kind of, just those random days where you feel really uneasy and you don't know why? Every now and again, I get those days, and I sit myself down alone because I hate that feeling. I hate that feeling. It eats away at me, especially if I don't know what's causing it. So I sit myself down alone and I go through everything that happened that day, all the big things that are happening in my life, and all the big things that I need to get done. And I'm like, where is that uneasiness coming from? What section of my life is that coming from? I find that section. So then I'm like, okay, so now I've pinpointed where it's coming from. That's the first step, right? Because not knowing where it's coming from, you can't fix it. It will be there. And I will not let it last longer than a day. I hate it. So I find where it's coming from. Now you know where it's coming from. You can say, okay, let's play the what if game, right? Because you're anxious and you're nervous about this one thing. Well, let's say that fear that you're having, it comes true. Then you've already prepared to cope with that thing happening. And that uneasiness slowly goes away because you're already prepared for the worst thing. You're prepared for the worst of the worst. And then guess what? Most of the time, the best case scenario never happens, but neither does the worst case scenario ever happen. When you're going into something big, usually something always happens in the middle, right? You either overestimate or underestimate, and it always lies in the middle. So that is huge for me, for calming myself down, right? I have a lot of ladies to look after. I got a lot of business things to look after. I got a lot of responsibilities in my life. And I don't want to sacrifice any area because I can't find out where my insecurity or my uneasiness is coming from. So I don't know what area to fix, right? And that is the biggest thing. If you put your attention somewhere where it shouldn't go, game over. Game over. The only way you win at life is by putting your attention on the thing that needs it in that moment. In that moment. Okay? There's holes in your bucket right now. There's holes in your bucket, right? Whatever those holes are. Maybe your marriage is strained. Maybe your relationship with your kids is strained. Maybe you're not doing well at school. You have holes in your bucket. Each one of these problems in your life is a hole in your bucket, right? And they're leaking. The water's leaking. It's falling out of your bucket. So it's your job to not try to fill all those holes at once. It's to find the biggest hole and fill that. Then move to the next hole and fill that. Find the biggest hole in your bucket and go from there. That is something that is going to greatly decrease your uncertainty and your uneasiness. And that's what I do. When I'm uneasy, I play out the worst case scenario, and then I target the biggest hole in my bucket. What's my biggest hole? Did Ryan and I get into a fight and we haven't resolved it? Is that going to ruin my mood when I come on a coaching call? If it is, I'm going to have to go fix it right away. Find your hole and fill it, and then move to the next big hole. Don't waste your time and attention on things that are small and not going to contribute to the bigger picture. That's a big, big, big problem, right? If your workouts are fine, you're not going to focus on making extra time to work out. That's not going to fix a problem, right? If you're not losing weight and you're doing all the Fit Queen workouts, we're not going to put our attention on working out more, right? It's a waste of energy. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy, and you're not going to get the results you want, right? If you're not following the meal plan and you've plateaued on Sunday, well, then it makes sense you put your energy into the meal plan. Don't worry about the workouts. You got those down pat. Is this making sense? You really have to break down and analyze, okay? How are you coping with things, and what are you filling in your bucket first? Okay, you guys will very, very easily become overwhelmed. And when you become overwhelmed, you don't move. You don't act. You have no idea what direction to turn. But if you simply just calm down and you say, what's that big hole in my bucket that needs to be filled? And if I don't fill that hole, what's the worst that can happen? Oh my God, your mind is so free. Oh my God. I can say that I don't think I experience anxiety for longer than a couple hours tops about big things that happen in my life or mistakes I make or failures that I have. It used to plague my mind for weeks and months, plague my mind. Like it would be the only thing that I think about when I make a bad mistake or a bad decision. Now it lasts for maybe a couple hours tops. And I've already gone through my coping cycle and I've already got a game plan to make it better. And I know which hole I have to fill. And this is such an important tool. Are you guys understanding how important this tool is? Just by looking and shifting your thinking to this way, you guys are going to be able to act with speed. You're going to be able to act with accuracy, and you're going to be able to skyrocket and 10x your results just because you now know where to focus your energy instead of wasting it on obsessing over something you did wrong or not knowing how to fix it because you don't know what area needs to be fixed first. Okay, so those are huge, huge tools. I want everybody on this call and everybody who's watching this replay to implement immediately. So is anybody feeling right now as we're sitting here a little bit anxious about anything, a little bit nervous? Do you have anything nervous coming up? Have you had a fight with anybody? Any uneasiness, okay? You need to sit down and say, where is it coming from? Okay, why am I afraid of it? What's the worst thing that could happen? And then how do I fill that hole? How do I just start to fill that hole? Only that hole, nothing else. And that will literally skyrocket how you level up in life, period. In any aspect, in your relationships, in your career, and in your health journey. It will absolutely literally 10x your speed. No joke. Until I did this, my personal growth was stagnant. I wasn't growing. I wasn't learning. Ryan and I's relationship wasn't progressing. And until I did this, I was just so overwhelmed with everything that had to get done, right? Because we all have a to-do list that's a mile long, but we don't know where to start. And, we always finish the first couple things on the to-do list, but we forget, 95% of the to-do list. But now, if you look at your to-do list, you find the biggest thing that needs to get done and you fill it. The little stuff goes away and life gets better. And then your bucket can hold more water. Even though there's still little holes, the big ones aren't leaking as fast and your bucket can hold more water, okay? So that's super important. Everybody should be implementing that what if theory moving forward, okay? Now, what I want to talk about kind of moving into the next thing, you guys know one of my biggest saying is you need to be reminded more than you need to be taught, right? For the most part, you guys, know pretty much everything you need to know to continue on a healthy journey. For the most part, there's some things that only time and experience can teach you. But for the most part, you guys know the basics of everything you're going to need to be successful and healthy, right? So here's what I want to break down for you, right? We all know one of our models in Fit Queen is we strengthen our follow-through muscle, right? We don't hope we can stick to things. We don't hope for motivation. We don't hope for consistency. We strengthen our follow-through muscle, and those things build up over time, right? But now I want to try to explain the follow-through muscle in a different way. So maybe it can resonate with you in a different way with where you are in your life right now, okay? So, I say strengthen your follow-through muscle, and what I mean by that is this, okay? When COVID started, okay, so when the quarantine happened in about, I think it was March for us, we shut down our gym in March, my routine completely changed. My schedule and my routine was thrown upside down. I used to be at a gym from 5 a.m. Till 8 p.m. at night. I was in a gym, I was in a computer, I was in an office. I could work out at whatever time I wanted. I wasn't around food all the time because I was gym, and I would work nonstop because I was just there with a computer and had nothing else to do. So I was super efficient. Ryan and I worked really hard. It took us about 2 years to finally find a routine because we were new entrepreneurs. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. It took us 2 years in business to finally find a routine. We find it, and then boom, life throws us a curveball, and we're like, oh, just kidding. Now it's time to find a new one. So we were thrown upside down. We were spending the entire day at home, right? Just like most of you were. We were at home. And, the coach in me was like, okay, we got to sit down, we got to write out a schedule, and we got to get this done and ready so we're prepared, right? Like we all should do, like you'd all know to do now, right? So I wrote out my schedule and what I had to follow. So I had eat breakfast at 8, do work from whatever, 9 till 11, work out from 12 to 1. Like I had this schedule, right? And then after a couple weeks, about a week or two of trying to implement the schedule, I kept noticing that every day I'd miss something. Every day I just wouldn't get that one thing done on my schedule, whether it was I missed a workout that day, whether it was I missed a meal prep, whether it was I just didn't get around to that thing at work. I just missed something. And so in that moment, I was thinking, what the hell am I doing wrong? Okay, you know what? Why don't I rearrange my schedule and try to figure something out? Why don't I rearrange my schedule so that it might be more likely for me to fit this in this time? So that's what I did. I rearranged my schedule. I was like, okay, maybe if I work out first thing in the morning, I won't miss it at night, right? And then I tried it, and then I missed something else that day. And this went on for a couple weeks, and I was like, okay, maybe I need to try a different schedule. And are you guys catching on to the pattern here? So I kept searching for this external thing to finally be the schedule that I can actually stick to and be consistent with everything on it. And this was right. This was about in March to April. I was figuring this out. And one day it hit me like a ton of freaking bricks. And this is why I love this saying, right? You need to be reminded more than you need to be taught. It hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not practicing my follow through muscle in my schedule. I practice it in my weight loss. I practice it with my food. I practice it with my workouts, but I'm not practicing it with my schedule. And that's when it hit me. It was like, ooh, I need to transition over, and I need to be reminded about what I'm teaching. So from that moment, it was like, oh, you know, everybody's excited to get a new game plan, right? You get excited. You're like, yes, new game plan. I'm excited. Let's see how this goes. I hope this works better, right? Or you plateau for a couple weeks. Then in your head, you work out a new game plan going forward as to why it's going to change, right? We've all been there. We all kind of make our own new game plans. But the problem is this, right? Are we good at anything the first time we try it? No. Are we good at anything the second time we try it? No. What about the fifth time we try it? No. Maybe. But guess what? We usually give up after the fifth try. We never really give it a fair shot, right? So it dawned on me in that moment that I just had to practice following through. I was only practicing the schedule for about 2 to 3 weeks. Then I was freaking out because I was missing things. I was like, okay, this has to be broken. I have to try something else. But really, I just have to practice practicing something. Practicing. Why do we keep skipping the practicing part? Right? So really, when I say strengthen your follow-through muscle, it means practicing. Stop looking for something else that you haven't practiced enough. Practicing. How many hours does an astronaut put in before their first trip to space? How many hours does a Olympic athlete put in before they can qualify for the Olympics? Countless hours, days, months, years of practicing. But when we don't get it or when we struggle, we look for something else. That's where that external savior comes into place. Instead of just looking internally and realizing, I suck at practicing things. I'm not giving myself enough credit to see if I can actually follow through because I'm not practicing, right? You have to, a new game plan doesn't mean you're more successful unless you practice your game plan. You can't just hope for it to click, right? You can't just start a new game plan. You can't hope to say, oh, I'm getting bored with the food. I'm going to try new recipes this week and hopefully I cannot overeat, right? It's not the new recipes that are going to save you. It's practicing sticking to the meal plan. And how long have you been doing the meal plan? Not very long. How long have you been eating like your old life? Well, your entire life. You have this eating habits, you have a lifestyle for decades. Now we have a new thing you need to practice, and you haven't given yourself enough credit to practice it, enough time to practice it. Practicing. We forget that part. We just think a new plan is going to be the thing that works. Practicing. Doesn't matter how many times you get a new plan, how many times you get a new mindset, how many times you talk yourself into being better. If you don't practice the thing, the baseline, the foundations that you guys all have, it's not going to work. You can't build a bridge. You can't build that brick wall if you keep going this way. If you keep placing bricks this way, then you have a little curb. You don't want a curb. You want a brick wall. You have to come upwards. Okay. So practicing. That is huge. Okay. And I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, how can I explain follow through muscle in a way that maybe can ring with you different, or a way that will resonate with you where you are right now? And it's just practicing. So simple. Same thing as strengthening your follow through muscle, but we just forget that part. We forget that there's still work that needs to be done. We forget that because you've done the bulk of your work, because you guys are very far along your journey now, you forget, you think we're good. We got it. We're good. Just going to keep doing what I'm doing. But when it throws yourself off, you get mentally thrown off because you thought you were good. You thought you had it all figured out. You didn't think you were that, you didn't think you had any bad habits left. But you don't really know where you're at with your consistency and your motivation. We don't really know how strong of a fit queen you are until you find it difficult to practice. You don't know how strong you've made yourself until it becomes hard to practice everything you've learned so far. Does that make sense? So if you haven't found it hard to practice yet, you need to test yourself. You haven't been tested. You don't truly know how far along you've come. Does that make sense? Big concept to grasp there. So you have to practice practicing, okay? So really quickly, ladies, in the comments, I want to know what your takeaways are. Where's your mind at after this? This is a lot of cool concepts today. I was really excited to share this with you guys. So takeaways, right? The what if theory, okay? So how are you guys going to apply that, okay? How are you going to figure out how to fill your bucket first, okay? What are you going to do with practicing? How is that going to apply to your life? So let's see in the comments what we're taking away. This is my favorite part. It's so cool to pick your brains and see how different stuff resonates with each of you. Practicing, and the what if. Yes, don't give up just because it's not connecting right away. Exactly, and don't give up if it's not connecting after a while, after weeks, months. Of course it's not. We're not all athletes. We're not all astronauts. Only special people, only a rare breed of people can reach true success and reach that high elevated level that it takes to have a healthy everything, mind, body, and life. Takes a long time. Took Buddha a whole lot of time. Took Buddha his whole life to reach nirvana. You think nirvana can be reached after 12 weeks? No, you gotta practice practicing. Mackie, practice being 100% at one thing. Yes, not 1% on 100 things, absolutely. Being ready for the downturn and my reaction, very important, exactly. Anticipate your reaction because then you can already begin to cope with it before it's even happened. That's powerful. 1 year is not enough time to change habits. Absolutely. It's gonna take a while, but you guys are right on track. The what if theory is the worst case scenario first. Exactly. Doesn't mean you're constantly negative or cynical. It means you're prepared for whatever happens. Okay. Definitely need to work on the large holes in the bucket and not worry about the small holes. The small holes are dangerous. They are distracting. That's when you're busy all day, but you've got nothing done. You ever had those days where you come home from work and you're like, oh my God, I didn't sit down, or I was working like crazy, but I don't know what I really got done. What did I get done? Did you move your life forward today? Did you move the ball forward today? If not, that means you are stuck focusing on the small holes, not the big holes, all right? And we need to realize we're not perfect and have to keep practicing even after failing. Exactly. Practicing really only does its job after you failed. You only really get a chance to practice after you failed, not before, because then it's not really tested yet, okay? So, ladies, that was a big one, okay? I want you guys to really take like a couple minutes after this call and really digest it. I can guarantee you everybody right now has something they are uneasy about, something that they are uncomfortable about or anxious about. Anything in life, any area. You need to talk to a friend who you can't see anymore, lots of different areas, okay? I want you to find that big hole, ask yourself why you're uneasy about it, and then talk yourself through the coping process if that big thing happens. And you guys will completely open your mind, and it's not going to hold power over you anymore, and you're going to be absolutely unstoppable, and you're going to have such control over your emotions, it will be contagious. Okay, once you can master these, watch everybody else in your life master them. Watch everybody else stop reacting. Watch them have control over their emotions. Watch them watch where they put their attention. Watch them elevate their lives because you've been contagious to them, which is really, really cool to watch as well. All right. So ladies, thank you so much. I love you. Practice practicing and comment on this video as well in the Facebook group so that we can actually implement what we're learning. All right. Enjoy your hump day and I will see you guys inside the group. Bye.